In a tight-knit black suburban community in North Carolina, a beloved youth football coach, known for turning troubled boys into disciplined young men, becomes the center of a storm when a batch of old prison letters surfaces, revealing ties to a forgotten gang murder from the early 90s. The case was sealed. Until now. A parent finds a yellowed envelope wedged behind the bleachers while volunteering to clean up after practice. The name on it isn't the coach's real name, but the handwriting matches his. Inside, letters dated from a maximum security prison in Georgia, addressed to a woman only known as Mama Lee. The letters speak in riddles, mention blood on the gloves, and one ends with, "Tell DeShawn he's not safe no more." Before we expose the secrets buried in this case, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in this world of lies, betrayal, and missing files, one click might be your only way to the truth. Now let's begin. The metal bleachers screeched under every footstep. Tamara Bell wiped her brow with the back of her glove and cursed the sticky summer air. It was her turn to volunteer after practice, and nobody else had shown up. Just her and a couple of snack wrappers tumbling in the breeze. Her son, Malik, was off chasing the last drops of Gatorade with the other 10-year-olds. She crouched under the lowest bench, reaching for a crushed water bottle, when her fingers brushed something stiff and old, wedged against the concrete wall. She pulled it out, a yellowed envelope sealed but soft with age, its corners curled like dry leaves. It had no postage stamp, just a name in bold black ink, Lee Taylor. Tamara froze. She didn't recognize the name, but something about the slant of the writing felt familiar. Curious, she tucked the envelope into her hoodie pocket, glanced around the empty field, and went back to wiping down the benches. Later that night, after Malik had gone to bed and the house settled into its usual hush, Tamara sat at the kitchen table with a glass of ginger ale and the envelope resting in front of her like a riddle. Inside were 3 letters, faded, smelled faintly of dust and bleach. She unfolded the first one carefully. "Mama Lee, you were right to tell me not to trust him. That's on me. I saw the blood on his gloves and still ain't say nothing, but now I gotta get out. Not for me. For DeShawn. He ain't safe no more if word gets out." I kept my mouth shut. The letter was dated June 14th, 1996. The sender's name at the bottom was smudged, but Tamara could just make out a looping R and a last name ending in Ois. She read the next 2 letters in a slow hush, heart knocking louder each time. Names, hints of violence. One mentioned Atlanta. Another talked about someone getting close to the kids. But the third was the one that made her stand up from the table, stunned. They call me Coach now. I got my shot to change the story, to make something right. But if you're reading this, something went wrong. The next morning at McKennon Park, Coach Royce was already pacing the field with his whistle in hand, mid-40s, always in a Navy tracksuit. Had a calm voice that kids listened to, especially the ones who didn't listen to anybody else. Tamara couldn't stop staring at him. He wasn't from around here originally, said he moved to Fayetteville to start over and give back. Folks loved him. He got Malik to stop talking back, helped the Jefferson twins with homework after practice. And now she couldn't unread those letters, couldn't unhear the phrase blood on the gloves. She had to know more. But where would she start? Tamara wasn't a cop. She wasn't even that active in the PTA. But she knew how to look things up, and she had a cousin in Charlotte who worked county records. Her stomach tightened. Was this man really who he said he was? Or was he hiding behind the cheers of a little league team? Tamara Bell didn't sleep that night. She tried, flipped her pillow twice, stared at the ceiling fan until it blurred, but her mind kept replaying the words in that last letter. They call me Coach now. I got my shot to change the story. Change it from what? At 7:12 a.m., with Malik still snoring and the sunrise bleeding through her blinds, Tamara brewed a pot of bitter coffee, pulled out her laptop, and typed in the name from the envelope. Lee Taylor. Too many results, hundreds, thousands. Old articles, social media accounts, obituaries. Most had nothing to do with Fayetteville, North Carolina. None looked like Coach Royce. She flipped the envelope over. In the top corner, barely visible under the flap, was something written in pencil. R. Royce, GSP 2721116. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. GSP. She Googled it. Georgia State Prison. Tamara's breath caught. The prison in Reidsville, Georgia. Maximum security housing lifers. She copied the number next to it, 272116, and typed GSP inmate records. It took a few clicks and a few detours through broken links, but finally she landed on an old public archive site still intact. Her hands trembled as she punched in the number. Inmate, Royce, Ronald J. Dobb, 10/11/1974. Offense, murder, second degree, gang enhancement, 1995. Sentence, 35 years. Eligible for parole in 2025. She blinked. Read it again. Ronald J. Royce. Born the same year Coach said he was. Same height, same face, or close enough. The black and white mugshot was blurry, but the jawline, those eyes, she was sure. Tamara stood up from the table so fast her chair scraped the floor. If Coach Royce was Ronald J. Royce, he wasn't just a mentor with a rough past. He was a convicted gang killer walking free 10 years before his parole window. So how was he here? More importantly, why had nobody known? Tamara didn't call the police, not yet. That's not how things worked in neighborhoods like hers. Black folks knew too well what happened when you handed a man over to the system based on a hunch, especially one who'd been doing right, at least on the surface. Instead, she called her cousin Simone in Charlotte, the one who worked records at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. Simone picked up on the second ring. "Girl, it's Saturday. This better not be about your ex again." "It's not. I need you to run a name for me. Or an alias." Simone groaned. "Now what kind of Netflix mess you wrapped up in?" Tamara lowered her voice. "Just check if a man named Ronald J. Royce has any sealed or relocated parole case files, preferably transferred from Georgia to North Carolina, and if he's ever petitioned under a new identity." There was a long pause. Then Simone said slowly, "You might want to be careful where you ask that kind of question, Tam." "I'm already careful." "Are you looking into someone dangerous?" Tamara stared out her window at the morning haze settling over the football field beyond the chain-link fence. The goalposts cast long, sharp shadows. Maybe. By Monday afternoon, Simone called back, whispering. "You didn't get this from me," she said, "but there's an internal seal on someone by that name. Georgia transfer, but it's weird. There's no parole logout form, like he didn't check out through regular release. His record just disappears in 2014. "Disappears?" Tamara whispered. "Like someone buried it. And get this, there's a sealed state program ID connected to it. Code reads RJRC14 NC Reentry Confidential. That's Department of Corrections language. Reentry, confidential relocation." Tamara sat down on her porch steps, stunned. So they let him out early and hid him. Probably under some correctional second chance pilot program. They give new names, wipe records clean, only for low-risk parolees usually. But he wasn't low risk. Simone sighed. Then someone made a mistake. Or someone owed him. Tamara clutched the envelope in her lap, fingers curling around the last letter. Something had gone wrong. Coach Royce didn't just change his story. He might have rewritten it completely, with help from inside the system. That evening she watched from her car as parents waved and smiled, kids laughed and practiced drills on the field, and Coach Royce, calm, focused, taught a boy how to line up his feet before a sprint. He didn't look like a killer, but then again, killers didn't always look like monsters. They looked like mentors, neighbors, coaches, and someone had gone to great lengths to let this man walk free. Tamara didn't know what to do next, but she knew this. She was going to find out what Mama Lee knew, and she was going to find out who DeShawn really was. Because this story, it was just getting started. The name Mama Lee stayed with Tamara like a hum under her skin. It was the way the letters addressed her, not with fear but reverence, like someone who knew too much and had carried it longer than anyone should. If Tamara was going to understand who Coach Royce really was, she had to find Mama Lee. She started small. A name that plain, Lee, would normally lead nowhere, but Royce had once mentioned he lived in Decatur before getting clean and moving to North Carolina. He'd let that slip during a cookout after practice last year. Tamara wasn't about to let that slip slide. She called in a favor from Simone again. By Wednesday morning, she had an address, a house in Decatur registered under Leona Taylor, age 72, same last name as on the envelope. Mama Lee. Tamara didn't overthink it. She filled her gas tank, left Malik with her sister for the day, and drove the 4 hours to Georgia with nothing but the letters in her glove box and a question burning holes in her chest. Leona Taylor's house sat on a street where porches sagged from heat and memory. Wind chimes whispered secrets in the breeze. Tamara parked across the street and stared at the weathered siding, the faded blue shutters, the porch swing that moved even though no one sat in it. She clutched the envelope in her hand and walked up the steps. A figure shifted behind the lace curtain. When the door opened, Tamara blinked. The woman who stood there had silver coils tucked into a scarf, brown skin that told stories even silence couldn't hide, and eyes that studied Tamara like she already knew why she'd come. "You his people?" the old woman asked. Tamara swallowed. "No, I think I found something that used to be yours." She held out the envelope. Mama Lee took it without a word, cradling it in her palms like an old photo. "I ain't seen these in 20 years, Mama Lee said, voice hoarse with something old and buried. "I burned the rest. Thought I burned 'em all." "I found them at the park," Tamara said, "under the bleachers." Mama Lee looked up slowly. "So he left them behind." Tamara nodded. "Coach Royce, is that Ronald?" Mama Lee exhaled, sat down in the porch chair with a quiet creak, and motioned for Tamara to do the same. "That boy was always too soft to last in them streets," she said. "Heart too big. Tried to clean up someone else's mess and ended up wearing the sentence for it." Tamara frowned. "You mean he didn't kill that man, but he was there, wrong time, wrong crew." Mama Lee's eyes were steel. "He kept his mouth shut because back then, silence was the price of staying alive. And they paid him in blood." Tamara leaned forward. "Then why is he free now? His record says 35 years, no parole until next year." Mama Lee laughed without humor. "Baby, you think them systems are clean. You ever heard of state program RJRC 14? Tamara froze. "That code was on the record. My cousin found it. They called it Redemption Corridor, some new re-entry model. Promised early release for a handful of lifers. Quiet deals. You train inside, get a degree, get counseling, then they relocate you with a new identity. I told him not to do it. Told him some stains don't wash out, but he wanted to be better." "Is that how he became coach?" Mama Lee nodded slowly. "He was transferred under the table, supposed to disappear into clean living. But his past, it don't disappear. It lingers, like rust." Tamara hesitated. "Who's DeShawn?" At that, Mama Lee stiffened. "That's who he's been protecting all this time," she whispered. "The boy who was supposed to die that night." Tamara's heart kicked. "Wait, the letters mentioned he wasn't safe." "He ain't," Mama Lee said, "because the man Ronald took the fall for, He got out too, not clean, not reformed, just quiet. And if he ever finds out where DeShawn is... Tamara sat back, stunned. He could be here, in town, watching. I tried to warn him, Mama Lee said, but that boy, as he thought building something good would erase what he came from. A long pause settled between them. Finally, Tamara asked, "So what do I do?" Mama Lee looked her square in the eye. "You figure out who's still looking for DeShawn, before they figure out where he is, and you keep your son close, because trust me, child, this ain't over, not by a long shot." That night, as Tamara drove home in the dark, the envelope rested on her passenger seat. The GPS directed her north, but her mind was spinning south. She had answers now, but she also had new questions. Who was DeShawn now? And who had followed Coach Royce out of the past? She was starting to realize someone else already knew the truth, and they were waiting for the perfect moment to make it bleed. Tamara didn't go straight home that night. She parked 2 blocks away from McKinnon Park, rolled down the windows and just watched. Streetlights hummed over the field like sleepy sentries. The chain-link fences rattled in the wind. No one was there, but the place held its energy. Echoes of shouts, whistles, the rhythm of cleats over grass. A thought gripped her tight. If DeShawn wasn't dead, if he'd been hidden in plain sight. She reached for her phone and opened the team roster Coach Royce had passed out during parent orientation. There were 17 kids listed, ages 9 to 13. Tamara had looked at this list a dozen times before, checking for snack duty, confirming dates for tournaments. But now, her eyes scanned for something deeper. There were only 2 kids on the team with no parent or emergency contact listed. One was Jaleel Banks, a tall, lean 12-year-old who rarely spoke. The other was Tyron Mackey, just turned 10, recently moved in from Atlanta with his uncle, according to sideline gossip. Tamara's fingers tightened around the roster. Atlanta. That couldn't be a coincidence. The next afternoon, Tamara pretended not to look as she sat on the bleachers during practice. Her sunglasses hid the intensity in her gaze. She watched Tyron like a hawk. The boy wasn't especially fast, wasn't loud, didn't push himself to be seen. But he moved with an uncanny awareness, dodging harder, watching his corners like someone who didn't trust peace. Coach Royce watched him too, not like a mentor, like a bodyguard. Tamara spotted it. Every time Tyron fell, Coach flinched. Every time the older kids got too close, Coach was already stepping in. Not too obvious, but now that Tamara knew what to look for, she saw it clear as blood on snow. At water break, Tamara made her move. She walked past the coolers and knelt beside Tyron, who was crouched under a tree sipping water from a dented bottle. His small fingers were fidgeting with a frayed string from his shorts. "Hey, Tyron," she said gently. "You doing okay?" He looked up, startled, nodded but didn't speak. She smiled, softening her voice. "My son Malik talks about you, says you're fast when you want to be." Tyron blinked slowly. "Sometimes." Tamara sat beside him, close but not crowding. "Where you from?" Tyron hesitated. "Decatur." "You got family here?" "Uncle James." There was a beat too long before that answer, like he was repeating what he'd been told to say. Tamara nodded. "You ever miss someone from back home?" He looked down at his shoes. "Sometimes." She leaned in slightly. "Did your mama ever call you anything special? Like a nickname?" Tyron paused. His lips twitched, almost a smile. "Dee calls me Shawnee." Tamara's heart stopped. DeShawn. Shawnee. Coach Royce was protecting this boy. Tyron Mackey was DeShawn. That night, Tamara couldn't sleep. Again. She pored over newspaper clippings, cold case forums, and anything she could find related to the 1995 murder Coach Royce was convicted for. Simone had emailed her a clipped document that night, blurred in parts, but enough to give her a name: Terence T. Rock Foster, a known Crips affiliate, killed execution style in a Decatur laundromat. No eyewitnesses, no camera footage, only one arrest. Ronald J. Royce, 20 years old at the time, claimed he was just there doing laundry, said he didn't see the killer's face, but blood got on his shirt and he refused to name who was with him. The prosecution framed it as loyalty to a gang, but now Tamara saw it for what it was: loyalty to someone he was trying to save, someone like DeShawn. By Thursday, she noticed a shift in the air. A silver car had circled the park twice during practice. Dark tinted windows, no plates. Coach Royce saw it too. Tamara caught the tension in his jaw, the way he moved Tyron off the field early and called for scrimmage to end 15 minutes ahead of schedule. She approached him afterward. He was gathering cones, but his eyes were elsewhere, scanning, calculating. "I know who Tyron really is," Tamara said quietly. He didn't look at her, didn't even flinch. "You shouldn't say that out loud." "I read the letters," she whispered. "I met Mama Lee." Now he looked up. Just once. His eyes were sharp, not angry but worn. "She shouldn't have talked to you," he said. "She was protecting you once. Now I'm trying to do the same." He stared at her for a long time. "You have no idea how dangerous this is," he murmured. "You think I'm the story. I'm not. The one who really did it, the one I covered for, he's out. Got out last year on a technicality." Tamara's blood ran cold. "Does he know where DeShawn is?" "I don't think so," Royce said, but his voice shook slightly. "But I saw that silver car, too." Tamara swallowed. "So what now?" Coach looked over at Tyron, who was laughing with Malik at the far end of the field, just two boys, barefoot in the grass, thinking the world was still kind. Royce turned back to Tamara. "Now we stop waiting," he said. "Now we fight." Friday came with a stillness that didn't belong. It was the kind of morning where the birds didn't chirp quite right. The air was thick, not just from the Carolina humidity, but with something unspoken, electric. Tamara woke up with her heart already racing, the kind of dread you couldn't explain in words. She checked on Malik 3 times before breakfast. Across town, Coach Royce stood alone on the 50-yard line before sunrise, just watching the empty field. His whistle dangled from his neck, unmoving, like it too had run out of breath. He didn't bring cones. He didn't bring equipment. He was waiting. At 8:03 a.m., the silver car came back. No plates, no music. It coasted slowly past the field, like a shark dragging its shadow across the water. Royce didn't flinch. This time it stopped. The passenger window rolled down, and out stepped a man in a crisp white tank top, arms marked with faded ink, eyes too cold to belong to a summer morning. He looked like he hadn't aged since the 90s, just hardened like stone under pressure. He looked like someone who'd survived the system, but carried the rot with him. Royce's jaw tightened. "Didn't think I'd find you in a place like this," the man said, voice smooth as oil. "Football field, with all these kids running around." Royce took one step forward. "You shouldn't be here." The man grinned. "Neither should you. Ain't that something?" Royce didn't say his name, but Tamara would later learn it. Darnell Kincaid, known back then as K9, the real shooter, the one Royce took the fall for. And now he was standing on North Carolina soil, 30 feet from the boy Royce had protected for nearly 2 decades. Tamara didn't know any of this yet. She was at the store when she saw the car again. Not in motion this time, but parked just across from the school. Her hands froze on the milk carton, the silver car, the driver, just sitting, staring at the playground where Tyron and Malik had recess. Her body moved before her brain did. She dropped the groceries, ran to her car, and dialed Coach Royce. No answer. She tried again. No answer. Then a message came through, A text. Get Malik, get Tyron. Go to Mama Lee's, don't go home, I'll handle him. Tamara's fingers shook. She called the school, lied, said there was a family emergency, and she needed both boys released immediately. 10 minutes later, she was pulling up to the office, hugging Malik tighter than she'd ever hugged him before. Tyron looked confused. His eyes, always too old, searched her face for the answer no one had ever said to him out loud. "Is it him?" he whispered. Tamara hesitated, then nodded once. "Yes, baby. He's here." They drove in silence for nearly 4 hours. Tyron didn't cry. Neither did Malik, but Tamara did, quietly behind her sunglasses when no one was looking. She wasn't crying just from fear. She was crying from rage. All this time they'd been letting this man, this child, live a half-life. Scared, hidden, pretending his name was something it wasn't. And now the nightmare had followed him across state lines. They reached Mama Lee's by late afternoon. She opened the door without a word and ushered them in, locking it behind her. "Where is he?" Tamara asked. Mama Lee's jaw tightened. "Royce?" Tamara nodded. "I don't know," Mama Lee said. "But I know what he's capable of when he's protecting something." She looked at Tyron, no longer just a boy, but a symbol of everything lost and saved. "If he went to meet Darnell," Mama Lee whispered, "then someone's not walking away clean." Back in Fayetteville, the field was quiet again. Roy stood near the old storage shed, his back turned to the setting sun. Darnell leaned against the fence, watching him like a hunter. "You think you can hide him forever?" Darnell sneered. "They'll find him. Might not be me next time. Might be someone who don't care you raised him like your own." "He's not yours to touch," Royce said calmly. "Neither was T-Rock," Darnell replied, and just like that the smile faded. "But I did what had to be done, you just got in the way." Royce reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small voice recorder. He clicked it on. "You want to confess again?" Royce asked, eyes steady. "Because this time it ain't just me who's listening." Darnell's eyes flared. "For you wired up now?" Royce smiled. "No," he said. "I'm just tired of pretending I don't remember how that night really went. And I think the boy deserves the truth. The whole truth." There was silence. Then the sound of a car pulling up fast behind them, 2 black sedans, unmarked, and from inside them men in suits, federal suits. Royce didn't move. Darnell spun around, cursing. "You snitched me out?" "No," Royce said quietly. "You snitched on yourself. 25 years ago in a letter you didn't even know I saved." From behind the trees, Simone stepped out, holding a USB drive in one hand. She locked eyes with Royce and nodded. Tamara had sent her the letters, she'd sent everything. Darnell Kincaid never made it back to Atlanta. The feds didn't say much, but it was enough. They had audio. They had a confession buried in ink and memory. And now they had the man who'd been hiding in shadows, not because he was running, but because someone else deserved a future more than he did. 2 days after the arrest, the Fayetteville sun returned like nothing happened, hot, sticky, and relentless. But the air felt different. Not because the man in the silver car was gone, not because a killer had been taken off the streets, but because of what Coach Royce did next. He didn't leave town, he didn't run, he didn't hide behind sealed court records or fade back into the shadows. Instead, he stood on the 50-yard line, just like always, and waited as the parents arrived one by one, with their folding chairs, team snacks, and restless curiosity. Some already knew, others had just heard the rumors, but all of them came, not because of football, because of Royce. Tamara stood near the fence, heart pounding. Malik stood beside her, clutching her hand. And Tyron sat alone on the lowest bleacher bench, cap pulled low over his brow, eyes trained on the man who'd protected him from a life he was born into but never chose. Royce stepped forward, No whistle, no clipboard, just his voice. "I owe you all the truth." The crowd quieted. No reporters, no news vans, just community. "My name was Ronald J. Royce. I spent time in prison for a crime I didn't commit, but I didn't fight it. Because someone needed protection more than I needed freedom." He glanced briefly at Tyron. "I came here through a re-entry program. I was told if I kept my head down, rebuilt my life quietly, I'd be left alone. I broke that promise when I decided to coach your kids. I broke it when I stepped out of the shadows." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. One father crossed his arms, jaw tight. A woman clutched her purse closer. Royce's voice never wavered. "You all trusted me with your children, and I need you to know I never took that lightly. Every drill, every game, every lesson I gave them, that was real. That was mine, not borrowed, not fake." He paused. "And if you want me gone, I'll go." The silence that followed was thick. Then a voice called out, shaky but clear. "You taught my son discipline." All heads turned. It was Mr. Jefferson, father of the twin boys Royce had tutored after practice. Another voice joined in. "You got Malik off that inhaler. You stayed late to teach him how to pace himself." Tamara's chest swelled, a lump rising in her throat. A mother near the fence wiped her cheek. "You called when my daughter sprained her ankle and I couldn't leave work." More voices, more nods. Someone clapped, then another. Then all at once, a ripple of applause. Not thunderous, but real, human, forgiving. Tyron stood up slowly, walked across the grass and stood beside Royce. He took off his cap and looked every adult in the eye. "I'm not Tyron," he said softly. "My name's DeShawn. That's what my mama called me. I didn't know it was dangerous to say it out loud." The field was dead still. But Coach didn't let me stay scared. He let me be a kid. So, I just want to play, if that's still okay. Nobody said a word for a full 5 seconds. Then Malik walked over, stood beside him, and handed him a football. DeShawn smiled for the first time in days. That evening, Tamara helped Coach pack up the last cones and jerseys from the field shed. "They're not done asking questions," she warned. "I know. You might lose your job." "I already did," he said. "But it's all right. I didn't come here to keep a job. I came to keep a promise." Tamara tilted her head. "To Mama Lee?" "To the boy whose name I couldn't even say for a decade," he replied. "To the future I didn't think I'd ever be part of." She hesitated, then pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. "Simone said this came through the court clerk this morning." He opened it. It was short, dry, bureaucratic. "Motion granted, record sealed, early parole justification approved." And at the bottom, in scribbled ink, "You did what most men wouldn't. He's safe. You are too. LT." Later that night, the field lights buzzed on one last time, not for a game, not for practice, but for something else. Tamara stood at midfield with a camera and a poster board that read, "Coach Royce Appreciation Night." No fanfare, just chairs, coolers, and truth. DeShawn ran barefoot through the grass. Malik followed, laughing. Parents mingled like they had before they ever asked questions about pasts or sealed files. And Royce? He stood back, hands in his pockets, watching it all unfold. For the first time in his life, he wasn't hiding. He was just home. 3 weeks later, Fayetteville was back to pretending. The news cycle had moved on. The feds packed up quietly. Coach Royce, now openly Ronald, kept a low profile. He stayed away from school grounds, but continued mentoring a few kids at Mama Lee's porch on Saturdays, like it was just a Bible study with cleats and playbooks. But Tamara knew peace like this didn't last in a town where silence was never complete. It only took shifts. She was stirring coffee when the call came. Simone's voice was taut, all business. "You need to sit down." Tamara didn't. There's a motion in the state attorney's office. A group is trying to unseal Coach's case files. Said he was part of a failed government rehabilitation pilot and that families were never informed a violent offender was interacting with minors. Tamara's heart sank. Who's pushing it? A councilman from Raleigh, Joseph Carradine. He's running for state AG, trying to make an example out of somebody. Tamara gritted her teeth. So this is politics. This is exposure, Simone said. If they unseal those records, it won't just hurt Royce. It'll blow DeShawn's identity wide open. Tamara stared out the kitchen window. She could see Malik and DeShawn racing bikes down the sidewalk, free for once, laughing like the world wasn't watching. They had no idea a man in a suit was trying to rip it all open again. Tamara grabbed her keys. This time, she said, they won't fight alone. The town meeting was set for Thursday night at the community center. Tamara had never stepped near a podium in her life. She wasn't a lawyer, wasn't an activist. She was just a mother. But that was enough. The room was packed. Folding chairs filled every inch. Some folks came out of curiosity, others out of spite, but most came out of loyalty. Coach Royce sat in the back, head down, cap low. DeShawn wasn't there. He was with Mama Lee. Tamara stepped to the mic. "Y'all know me," she began. "I'm not here to convince you who Ronald Royce used to be. I'm here to remind you who he is now." A few murmurs, some nods. She looked straight at the council members seated up front, including one of Carradine's local proxies. "This man has spent the last 5 years of his life building what none of you even bothered to touch: trust. He took boys with no fathers, no structure, and gave them consistency. He did what your programs, your grants, and your empty promises couldn't." She let the words hang in the air. "Now you want to rip that from him? From us? From the very kids you forgot existed until his story got too interesting for your campaign flyers?" That got their attention. "Make no mistake," she continued, voice stronger now. "This isn't about safety, it's about shame. Someone in your ranks approved his release. Someone signed that re-entry program into existence. And now, instead of owning it, you're coming for him." She shook her head. "Nah, we're not having that." A few claps, then more. Soon the room was on its feet. Later that night, as the crowd spilled out into the parking lot, Coach Royce stood beside Tamara in the dusk. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I did," she replied, "because every time someone tries to reduce you to a file or a photo, it puts every kid who ever looked up to you back in the dark." He looked at her for a long moment. "They won't stop, you know." "No," Tamara said, "but neither will we." 3 days later, the motion was denied. Sealed records to remain sealed. The AG's office issued a quiet statement. "In light of community support, compliance with all re-entry program conditions, and absence of any violations, no further action will be pursued." Carradine moved on to his next headline. But Fayetteville remembered. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. It comes from the people who refuse to let truth be rewritten. That Saturday, the boys were back on the field. Royce didn't wear a whistle, didn't call plays. He just stood on the sidelines, hands in his pockets, watching DeShawn run across the grass without fear in his step. Tamara sat in the bleachers, arms crossed, sunglasses on. Beside her, a grandmother whispered, "You think he'll ever coach official again?" Tamara smiled faintly. "Maybe not." Then she looked at DeShawn, calling out drills, laughing with the other boys, lining them up like a natural leader. "But I think someone else is about to start." The summer folded in slow. Thunderstorms rolled through Fayetteville like passing guilt, quick, loud, and gone by dinner. The kids kept playing ball under gray skies. Mama Lee planted tomatoes in coffee cans. Coach Royce stayed out of the papers and off the grid. but folk still waved when they passed him outside the corner store. Healing had no finish line, just moments of stillness long enough to catch your breath. Then the man came, not loud, not armed, just present. He pulled up in a matte black pickup, Tennessee plates, and walked through the neighborhood like a shadow too real to ignore. Tamara first saw him from her porch. He was tall, thin, with old tattoos fading into new skin, the kind of man whose presence turned air to glass. He didn't say his name, didn't ask directions. He just stood near the playground where DeShawn was teaching Malik how to catch a deep pass. Tamara came down the steps, her phone already in hand. He turned to her with a faint nod. "I'm not here to make trouble." "That right?" she said, eyes hard. "I just want to see my son." The words dropped like stones. His name was Elias Ward, known on the streets in the 90s as Slick Eli. Former Vice Lord's shot caller out of Memphis, vanished around 98. Never charged, never claimed, never came forward. Until now. "I knew the boy was mine," Elias said, sitting across from Tamara at her kitchen table. "But when I got jammed up, I told his mother to say he was anyone's but mine. I was trying to save him. Guess that don't count for much." Tamara folded her arms. "And now you're back because—" "Because I got stage 4, he said. "Because I got a year, maybe. Because before I leave this world, I want to tell my son who he really is." Tamara stared. Not because she pitied him, but because she knew exactly what a truth bomb could do when dropped into a life built on silence. She told Coach Royce first. They sat out back behind Mama Lee's, the sun peeling off the edge of the horizon. "Elias Ward?" Royce asked. She nodded. "He said he's dying." Royce leaned back slowly. "He ain't wrong about that." Tamara tilted her head. "You knew." "I had a feeling. Mama Lee used to get letters from a prison in Tennessee. Burned, most of them. One day I saw a return address. E. Ward." He rubbed his jaw. "I always suspected DeShawn had bloodlines tied to people worse than me." Tamara took a breath. "So what do we do?" Royce looked down at his hands. "We ask the boy." That Sunday they sat DeShawn down at the table. Just him, Tamara, and Royce. They told him straight, no spin, no apologies. DeShawn didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He asked one question. "If I see him, does that change who raised me?" "No," Royce said. "But it might explain who left you," Tamara added gently. DeShawn nodded. "Then I want to meet him." The meeting was quiet. Elias came with no expectations, just a folded photograph of a woman holding a baby in front of a dusty apartment window. "That's your mom," he said. "She used to sing to you when the power got cut. Said your name was a prayer. DeShawn." "Of God." DeShawn studied the photo. Then he asked, "Why'd you never come for me?" Elias didn't speak for a long time. "Because I didn't think you'd be safer with me," he said. "I didn't think I had the right." DeShawn didn't forgive him that day, but he didn't send him away either. They sat together for an hour, maybe more, didn't talk much, just passed the photo back and forth as if holding the memory made it real. Elias died 6 months later in a hospice bed outside Nashville. No funeral, no fanfare, but DeShawn received a package 3 days after, a cassette tape, a chain with a small gold cross, and a letter written in a rough, slanted hand. "You were never supposed to carry the weight of my name. I only hope now you carry your own. Proud and free. Love always your father, Elias." Years later, Fayetteville High named the new football field after Coach Ronald J. Royce. Tamara stood at midfield during the dedication, her hair grayer now, her voice steadier than ever. She read a speech DeShawn had written, who was away at college on a sports education scholarship. "There are people who raise you with blood, and people who raise you with sacrifice. I carry both now, but the one who taught me to stand upright was the one who stood beside me when I couldn't speak my name out loud. Coach Royce never coached another official team, but he never had to. Because every fall, when the leaves began to turn and the air smelled like grass and redemption, kids still ran across that field, and they ran like boys who believed the world might still hold second chances, even if it took everything to get there. The end. They let him coach the kids. Then the prison letters surfaced.